Hello everyone and welcome back to Riverview, our sort of realistic North American themed metropolitan area here in City Skylines 2. In the most recent episode we focused on adding some additional suburban sprawl to the metro area to really create that scale of a large urban built area. More specifically, we built the cozy suburb of Kendrick, complete with its own small commercial strip here, a bit of landscaping, its own school, and some pretty nice suburban areas, low density, up the hills. And the most popular suggestion from the most recent episode was this one, requesting a detail-oriented episode, redeveloping an existing area within Riverview. So that's what we're gonna be doing today, as we'll use developer mode in combination with mods to give the Riverview Central Gardens, as well as the highly expensive residential streets that face it, a complete overhaul. But we'll also be turning this ongoing construction site into a high-rise luxury condo development as chosen by you guys on our most recent vote. Before we get started, here's a friendly reminder to pause the video and consider liking if you enjoy my content, as it really does help out. And consider enabling notifications as well if you don't want to miss out on future videos or important votes, such as the vote we have ongoing right now on the channel on whether to implement public transit in Kendrick and what type of public transit. Alright, let's get going. We're gonna start with the luxury condo tower, and then we'll move on to the park. So we're just gonna do a little cleanup here, and I'm so happy that there's been a new update to the Anarchy mod, because otherwise I couldn't actually bulldoze quite a few of these elements that I had placed down in one of the previous episodes, which would have been kind of awkward. I mean, we couldn't actually build anything here, at least without like having a crane or maybe like a machine stick through. Fortunately, we're good to go now. We'll just do a little terraforming so that we can smoothen this out, of course. And then I think if we do we might not even have to remove the roundabout actually, but we'll just have to find something then that's fitting for this lot size. Now, given that this is a specific type of residential building, a luxury condo tower that you guys approved for this lot, you honorable members of the city council, we are going to use developer mode, of course, to find an appropriate building. And it seems like the lot is it's 3 times 6, but if it were to go to 6, it would kind of carve into the other lot. So we're gonna go for a 3 times 5. So we'll say 3 times 5, we'll say, I've already made this search, I can see in another context, residential high. And that's gonna narrow down the amount of options we have and make it a little easier. And we're probably gonna find the most fancy buildings at level 5, so we're just gonna test those out. And this one certainly is fancy, but I don't really think it screams luxury condo tower, so we're gonna check another one out. Kind of the same deal. This one is actually identical. This one is definitely not gonna go as a luxury condo tower. And this one either. This is a little more like it. A pretty nice asset. No, 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 no. Alternatively, something we can also do is actually look for a 5 times 3, because we can disable snapping and move that around as we please, and hopefully still get a road connection. So let's just check those out as well, just to make sure we kind of check out what we've got available to us. Ooh, here we go. I think we're gonna go for this one, especially since the investors did note that there'd be a very expensive what's it called, penthouse in this unit, and if it ain't expensive to buy this terrace up here on the roof and the 2 top floors, then I don't know what is. So let's try and place this one, and like I said, with some snapping we'll just turn it around. We can hopefully just about squeeze it in on the zoning lots here, because remember, when you place buildings freely with the developer mode, you still have to adhere to zoning rules. So if we just squeeze it in here, then of course it's gonna immediately complain, but that should be fixed as soon as we give it the appropriate zoning. There we go. Next up is of course going to be a bit of detailing, and that we're gonna start out with surfaces because that is just the obvious first step, and I'm not too happy with the pavement surface that the building actually ships with. It's very bland. Fortunately, if we select our bulldozer with the Anarchy mod, we can actually select this option here, which is gonna allow us to, which should allow us to very easily, oh, I had to enable Anarchy, of course, disable, bulldoze the actual surface that shipped with the building, and now we can create our own. And I think we're gonna go with this tile set that we've used for the hotel. I think it would make sense for a common theme between these two buildings, and that's the tile surface 01 that we're gonna have to use then. And then I'm just gonna start by recreating the initial footprint of the building. So something like this is a decent start. And then we need to add a bit of shape and a bit of extra character to it. So let's just give this a go. I'm thinking if we go out around here, I'm going to use reference points in the building to create a bit of a shape here. So if we go out here and we stretch it to about this curve, then maybe we can sort of move into the central point here. And we can go out to the curve, go out a bit so we reach this point as well. And then we'll just make sure we do a little overlapping here so that it completes. Then we've got a bit of a shape going on here. And of course we can adjust it to our liking as well, if we want to make it a little more unique as such. And then over here on this side, I think we're gonna try to make a bit of a curvy extension here. So probably just gonna click and then disable snapping to give us a little more freedom of movement. And the cool thing, of course, is that there's so much flexibility in just, you know, adjusting a few things if you don't like how it actually turned out. I think something like this is probably pretty good. And then maybe we'll just enable snapping again and add like a more regular shaped extension down here. And I think I'm gonna bring this all the way out to the road. Alright, so we're not gonna do anything much more fancy than that when it comes to the like actual surfaces we'll be using. We'll actually just be grabbing the existing grass I've used here, which is this manicured grass basically, and we'll just be bringing that real close so that we've got like a shared stretch of land here. And then I'm thinking some rather simple detailing. So we'll open up our object menu here. And I'm gonna be looking for some garden lights. These small ones, I've used them here for the parking area here as well. But this time we're gonna use some little more interesting. And then maybe create a bit of landscaping just to kind of spruce it all up. And it's gonna look awesome in come nighttime as well, due to the lights really standing out. So I'm just gonna create like a few circles, and then we'll add some flora in between. And we'll have to rename the building as well, probably. Developments like these are always called something fancy. Cringeworthy and fancy, all at the same time. Great, we've got our lights in place now, a very simple pattern, and then we're gonna go for some of these cultivated flowers in a circle formation as well. See if I can find the center here. Something like this, yeah. Go ahead and grab the other variant, or maybe like we could like fill in a small variant of this type in between. Then grab the other variant, get that filled in, grab a small variant as well, and just kind of mixing it up a bit, make it a little more interesting. And then we're gonna place one of the more beautiful trees in the very center. Let's check out our options for the trees. And the birch is one of my favorites for this kind of detailing. The oak is my favorite tree in game, but it's so bulky that it, while kind of realistic, it also kind of covers up the detailing you're actually doing. So I think we're gonna prefer the birch here. Just see if I can kind of center it one over here as well, and then out front we're probably just gonna go for some. Can we do like a poplar or something? Yeah. The footprint is a lot smaller, so we can still kind of see the detailing we've done with the poplar. Yes, if we were to add a few final touches, we'd add a garden bench or two for residents to use. I mean, this is just something the developer adds, right? I don't know if you'd be chilling right here, but I mean, yeah, developer's gonna develop, right? So whatever, we'll add a few just for good measure, of course. Maybe yeah, we can have some right outside the building, and there are already a few over here as well. Nice. Let's see if we've got a trash, well, not a trash container, that's for sure. Trash bin. Is that gonna, yeah, that's gonna work. Just gonna go for a simple style here. Cool, and then probably some proper lights as well to just kind of flank the small, whoops. See if I can just add, like, find something that's kind of small and simple. Park variations, that seems like a pretty cool idea. Oh yeah, they would definitely install these kind of retro futuristic industrial looking ones. Yeah, developer's gonna develop, right? So we'll add a few of those. I'm being overly skeptical of modern development here, I don't know why. Alright, and I think that wraps up the amount of detailing we are gonna do for this single building here. Although there's actually one more thing I do want to add, and that's some invisible pedestrian paths. Because we do have a path placed down here, but I am curious whether this can actually. Okay, so it can actually mess with the zoning, which is really nice, because then we can wrap it around the building. I was a little curious on whether it could actually mess with the zone tiles like the normal pedestrian paths can, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So that's awesome. And there we have our beauty. So, residents, welcome to 23 Applegate Lane. Yeah, we're gonna have to rename this. So, if you're sitting with a suggestion out there, the most developer type-ish new development name you can come up with, something fancy like Riverside or whatever these guys actually try to name their buildings to make them seem even more luxurious than they are, then please write a comment and I'll pick one of you guys' suggestions and we'll rename this in the future. Anyways, before we finish up this area, I've recently learned that it's actually possible to create functional custom parking lots in City Skylines 2, and it's actually quite a joy to work with and enables quite a bit of flexibility for us. So we've got this awkward shape here. There used to be industrial stuff here, as you guys might know. Let's repurpose it into a small parking lot with some trees and stuff. A functional parking lot, that is. Now, the city of Riverview doesn't actually mandate a ton of parking whenever you want to build something, which is very positive in the densification efforts in the city. And one of the reasons that the downtown is so dense with so little, so little in terms of dedicated surface parking. And it's the same case out here. If you live out here, you're just gonna have to find parking somewhere. But if you're filthy rich, you can buy parking you can buy a pass to the parking lot we're gonna build right next to it here. So what we're gonna search for is let's see, invisible. I don't think it's actually called parking, is it? We're just gonna search for an invisible road. Because then there is a road here, which is obviously invisible. And as you can probably see, it's gonna spawn automatically generated parking rows on either side of it, which is really cool. And if you move it relatively close to like an established road, you'll see indications that it can actually connect to it. And that's exactly what we want. So I think I'm gonna try and see if I can just smoothen this out a bit, smoothen this terrain out a bit before we actually add it in. But otherwise, we're just gonna go for it. So I'm thinking that if we can get as much parking squeezed in here as possible. So this is obviously a little too much. And I don't want it to clip in any way. So maybe just something like this. And then we can grab the two-way invisible road without parking and then just make this final connection down here. And I don't want to lose the last 2 parking spaces. I don't think so, at least. It's fine. We can leave a bit of room here or some grass or stuff. So that's okay. What am I doing? Please just allow me to connect. Great, we'll just go for this. Now, if we go into our surface tool, we can of course paint. So we've got an actual parking lot, and it's actually already functional. So if we were to hit play, we'd see cars start parking here. I think we're actually just gonna hit play because we want this building to populate as well. Everything should be in order for that to happen. And yeah, let's see. We can also delete this lane now with the anarchy mod, which is pretty important. It's always a little awkward to have something you can't actually delete. But I'm just gonna add in a bit of extra pavement here for cars actually wanting to leave. And we're gonna do the very same thing here, of course. We'll see if I get this right. I probably don't, but the surfaces are so easy to... ooh, that's pretty close. It's not bad at all. For good measure, I'm pretty sure we can find an arrow as well, just in case our silly people have doubts on which direction to actually navigate the parking lot. Yoink, and maybe down here as well. And let's just add a few simple props and a bit of surface work to just make it look a little better. So we'll enable our snapping and just go and add some manicured grass. Just gonna add a very simple parking gate. Not that it's functional or anything, but actually, can we add one to the very center here? I think we can, which is kind of cool. I don't know if cars are gonna clip a bit into it when they leave and enter, but I guess that's okay. Then just a bit of maybe the lights we were actually using before, like having some garden lights to kind of just wrap around this area here, because they also kind of look like bollards, or however you say it. Cool. And then yeah, just a few trees, I guess, and a few of these wildflower bushes. Adding in a residential fence. Just gonna add a few lights, and then I think it's a wrap. So we'll just have a bit of a distance, maybe every 3 spots we'll add this type of street lights. And then that's a wrap. Could detail this forever, but we're not gonna do that. And I think for our very first functional custom parking lot, then I'm pretty happy with the result. Alright, so the next big thing of the episode, of course, is to revamp Riverview Central Gardens before we change out many of the buildings that face this very expensive high-end place. And I think the first thing we're gonna do is just do a bit of a reset of the park, because we built this in, you know, I think it was actually like the first episode pretty much of the series back when I had early access to the game. And I haven't really done much work on it ever since. So I'm thinking that doing a bit of a reset, at least deleting some of the park structures here and removing all the trees is a pretty good place to start. And one thing I'm also gonna do is upgrade the lanes we have surrounding the park to actual streets, or 2-lane roads as they're called in game. So we are gonna eat a bit into park space, because I don't want to push the zoning too far back. And we're gonna do the very same here, same thing over here, and here I think we're gonna upgrade to a 4-lane configuration instead. I think that's fine. There's quite a bit of traffic here, and yeah, I think that's about it. Because I do want some more substantial streets to kind of line the park. The first thing we want to do is start placing down some of the actual in-game parks and like amenities and activities that we want to fit within Riverview Central Gardens. So let's see, for starters, we're gonna check if there's any cool upgrade we can do to the cemetery. There's a columbarium, which sounds a little fun, but it's actually a pretty cool extension we've got here. So we might add that, as it looks like it's a pretty cool structure. So we've added that, and don't worry, with Anarchy we can move in pedestrian pathways as we want. So this is not going to be a hindrance, and the same is going to be the case over here. It's not like one aspect of the park is going to be blocked from the other one, because we're going to connect everything up. And then I'm thinking we're going to use some of the in-game parks and plazas. We've got a small plaza here, and we had one already placed over here, so I think it's probably fine to just place one again, and we'll make sure to connect that up as well. We've got a large city park as well, and a large plaza, which might be interesting to try and incorporate somewhere down here. So I'm just gonna disable snapping, enable Anarchy, and see how it looks if we actually overlap it with this existing structure here from the cemetery. Alright, so a few props got removed, but otherwise it's that's an interesting design choice. I think we're gonna stick with this for now, and then we might remove it if there are certain aspects of the park that we're gonna make a little more wild and crazy, because it is gonna look a little manicured at first. Let's see if we've got other stuff. We've of course got a skate park. I think I'm gonna place that down the corner here. Gonna free place it so that we can just move it just a bit away from the street as well. Hope the skaters don't mind. Something like this. Basketball courts, we're certainly gonna need that as well. Maybe the corner down here is a fitting location. 1 and 2, and can we actually squeeze in a third? Otherwise we can just flip this, of course. Yank. The outdoor gym, it's a very small asset, but we might as well see if we can make a bit of space for it. If I place 2, are they gonna look a bit different? They are. They do switch up a few of the props. So let's start with that. Let's have another look. We've got a community pool that could be a really cool addition as well. Although we are also really starting to add some stuff now to the park. Let's see. maybe we could have the community pool somewhere around this area. And gonna check if there's anything else we've missed. Tennis courts, they take up quite a bit of space. So I'm not sure that's something I want to actually implement here in the park. You know what? I think for now we're gonna remove the large plaza. It's gonna be a little too manicured, and I do want the park to also have like a wild edge to it. But there's something else that I would like to try and add and see if it's actually going to work out, and that's like gonna be like a stage for like public speaking or whatever you want. Kind of a democratic thing. I don't mean politically democratically aligned, but like in the spirit of Greece. So I'm hoping we actually do have a stage we could place, but I think we'll probably need see if we can find like a stand of some sort. Sports park stands, small corner. I think something like this could be really, really fun. So I'll place one of these, then we'll go for the stage. And that is aligned perfectly. We'll add that, and then of course we'll need to add some tiles to this. Let's see, there's this I think this brown one is probably the best one. Or actually that's just, is that the sand surface? It is, right? It's not, but I think we're gonna use this type I just found here. Gonna disable snapping so we can make it a little janky at places. And I think that actually looks pretty good. Alright, so like I said, I want to have parts of the park that are like well manicured and obviously like maintained by park staff and facilities, and then I want parts that are a little more wild. And I hope I can separate that in like a natural fashion, some way at least. So if I, for instance, were to designate a couple of paths here as such, then if we go and grab the manicured grass, I'm just gonna enable some snapping and then fill out this area, then I'm hopeful that we can make that look well manicured by using like specific combinations of bushes and trees, and then we can have some large like enclaves basically that are a little more wild in nature, if that's what you prefer. So we'll have some well manicured stuff here, and then we'll also have some well manicured stuff over here by this park. And I'm gonna start connecting up these pathways here. So the space we've got here is also going to be well manicured, and we might as well just like expand from the park here. And the same thing over here, I think. So we're gonna integrate this a little better. Let's get all the final paths added in, because then we can see if there are some areas where we can have well manicured parts as well. And this is all only gonna make sense when we start adding in the trees and bushes. I know, but I hope you still follow along. We're gonna add the last part of well manicured grass in here, and then I'll jump into trying to populate this with the trees and hopefully make sense of all this talk of wild areas and manicured areas and in everything in between. Alright, so we're gonna line the manicured areas with birch first. Gonna do that for all of them. And then for all the areas in between, we're gonna use a much bigger mix of different types of trees. Oaks, we're gonna use some spruce, we're gonna use some alders, some pines as well, and gonna add in a ton of wild bushes as well. Alright, so I think that's a wrap for the Riverview Central Gardens. There's a bit of a history to this one, actually, as many decades ago, like 50 or 60 years ago, these well-maintained open areas of the park used to actually be much larger. But then there was a push from, you know, different interest groups and residents to actually make it a little more wild. And like as time has passed, more of these areas in between the established paths has been like rewilded, or whatever you call it, so that they're more wild and like provide a bit more of a forest experience. So yeah, pretty happy with how this turned out. And this of course leads us to the final push for the episode, which is replacing most of the buildings facing the Riverview Central Gardens with our specific picks. And we're gonna let like upper west side and those areas facing Central Park in Manhattan really be the inspirational drive here. So I'm thinking old, beautiful North American turn of the century architecture, and maybe a bit of European stuff mixed in if it looks fancy enough. So for starters, we are gonna have to just like demolish a bunch of the stuff here, because this stuff here is just not fancy enough. I think we can keep a bit. This is a signature building. And we just relocate that quickly so that we still get our bonuses. Let's see. Yike. No, we can't. Why? Is there no room? There's just about no. What if I enable anarchy? There really isn't any room, but there is over here. There we go. All right, let's open up our object menu for starters, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna place the towers that we'll need first. So we'll go for residential high. We'll start with level 5 buildings preferably, and then we're just gonna go through and pick some of the stuff that we would like to actually have facing the park. And I'm probably gonna refrain from, I say that now, too tall buildings, but yeah, we'll see. If I find something I really like, then we're just gonna go for it. So stuff like this is pretty juicy, and it seems we've got a decent spot here on this corner, so we might as well just place that. And then I'm gonna fix up the zoning after we've placed all the buildings. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Oh, this one looks kind of fancy as well. We could place it at the very edge of the park here to kind of, you know, extend the skyline and create that sort of visual. Could be pretty interesting. So let's just do that actually. Place that here. Well, we've got this one, which is also sort of fancy, but looks a little more modern. And of course, I'm gonna have to remove, let's see, all of these over here as well as Washington Lane, so that we've got a bit more space to work with. Where were we? This is quite a modern tower. We could go for something like that as well, maybe squeezed in here. We'll try this corner over here, and then we can always just remove it if it's not to our liking. I quite like this modern tower as well, so I think we're gonna enable snapping and see if we can squeeze it in at the very edge here. It's a bit lower than the others as well, so I think it's a pretty good fit. This tower is also pretty nice looking, so I think we're gonna place that here. So that's facing the park from, you know, having the river in the back as well. We are going to squeeze this building in as well, I think. See if we can find a suitable spot for it. The corner here? Nah. There we go. And this is the one we had like organically, or whatever you want to call it, before. So I think we're gonna add that one in as well. And we'll just have to see if it probably makes the most sense over here actually. Adding to that skyline effect. We're gonna place that here, and I think that's a wrap for the high density residential buildings. It's pretty cool here with the spacing. It's like the 4 sister buildings or something. We're gonna jump into the medium density now, where there are also some just absolutely beautiful buildings in this game. And I guess the crazy thing is that it actually takes like a ton of time and a very well functioning city to actually grow these buildings. So some of these you may have never seen. I mean, when I went through and checked the first time I enabled developer mode, I of course hadn't seen like the majority of these buildings, because like I said, your city needs to be very advanced for it to grow, you know, beyond like level 3 buildings. But let's start going through some of these, and as you can probably already guess, they are just beautiful. Some of these are just gorgeous looking buildings. So like a building like this, we just kind of have to place that here alongside the park, because it's really got that upper west side vibe we talked about. We just need to find the right spot for it, of course, because it is also quite a big building. I think we're gonna place it here maybe. And this next one is like equally gorgeous, so we're gonna have to place that as well. It's a little slimmer, so maybe it's a good one for over here where we've got a little less space. Otherwise, we're actually just gonna go for this corner lot, I think. And here we've got another absolute beauty to add. A bit of a smaller building, so maybe we'll just put that over here. And then we've got this building here, which is obviously also just gorgeous. It's actually from the European set, but I think it's a fine fit as well. It's unfortunate that many of these aren't actually wall to wall, so we are gonna have, you know, awkward gaps in between, but that's just gonna be, you know, that's just the name of the game. Adding in another gorgeous building here, which I think even comes in like a configuration that's a little slimmer, but it probably has more detailing if we pick like one of the... So this is one version we can place, and then we've got, let's see, is that the same? No, this one is a different building altogether, so we're gonna place that as well. Alright, so I've just placed the last couple of buildings, and I know I initially wanted to push the buildings back a bit so that there's a bit of extra room between the street and the houses, but since we've got anarchy, we can of course line the streets with whatever tree we want. And I think it would be pretty fitting to actually go for birch, because that's the tree type that was used in the actual park, you know, in these well manicured parts. So I think it would make sense that when these streets were kind of beautified back in the day as well, they'd also use birch trees to kind of line alongside the streets here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Then we're also gonna create a few additional pedestrian crosses. But let's just start with the birches here, and I think 20 is probably fine. See if it looks, but yeah, we'll go for a distance of 20 meters. And yeah, with anarchy, it's very simple, gives us just that extra flexibility we like. Then let's get these extra crossings created. Of course, that's just a matter of dragging a bit more with our streets here, which is very, very nice. Let's see, we'll create a crossing here as well. If we move over here, we can create a crossing here as well. And let's see, there's space for a crossing here as well. And possibly even one here. So yeah, I really want to prioritize the crossings because it is a big park, right? And you know, cars are not gonna be like the first priority here, which is not very North American of me, but we can take some creative liberties. For the last part of detailing, it's all a matter of just, I'm gonna go in with the surface tool, make sure the surfaces here actually hug the sidewalks, sorry, and look a little more interesting. Then I'm gonna grab some trees and add in a few trees in between the buildings as well. Gonna use Anarchy for that to just create an overall nicer look. And that marks the final bit of detailing around the Riverview Central Gardens and the streets surrounding it. So I'm gonna hit play now, and the simulation is probably gonna grind to a halt because the population figure is gonna have to try and kind of rebalance itself now, because we obviously removed a bunch of existing buildings which forced people to move out. But as you can see, the trend is quickly turning around, because I'm pretty confident that we've added more apartments and condos that we've actually removed. But I'll get back with you in just a sec when it's sort of balanced out. And just look at all the activity in the Central Gardens. Tons of people out here. That is so awesome. And yeah, you've got some pretty fantastic views as well, huh? Of these beautiful buildings flanking it. And of course the downtown skyline is right behind these buildings back here. Anyways, the simulation is running quite slowly, but our population figure is steadily growing up, so I think it's a net positive for the residential population of the city. It would surprise me otherwise, at least. And I think with that said, then this is a wrap. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of detail-heavy episode where we tried to work with some of the newer mods and some of the many possibilities of the development tool. Or developer mode, sorry. Pretty happy with how our luxury condo tower over here turned out, as well as our functional custom parking lot. So yeah, I'm gonna shoot some hopefully juicy cinematics for you guys now, and just wanna say thank you all so much for watching and all the support, the suggestions, the feedback, and the votes and input on the votes on the channel. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.